here is a difference between us and many other companies. Other companies, they have certain mindset. It's either hardware or software prevailing.
Yes.
Right.
And
so for them,
in the old companies, in the old-fashioned companies, it's almost exclusively hardware. They do not understand software.
So it's a perception of complexity. Of course, it's like when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So a complexity of hammer plus a nail for you is very low. But we look at this from a complexity, obviously, and we have both software and hardware co-founders, but we also look at this from scalability perspective. The software is much, much, much better scalable, and in both design and you may say manufacturing, right? Manufacturing is zero. It's not zero. You have to distribute.
And the replication cost is low, but
replication is zero, but you have to distribute and deploy carefully. And those people who can do it carefully and know how to do it are costly. So, but in any case, it is several orders of magnitude better from a scalability perspective. Not several, like I said, 2 orders of magnitude. So 100 times better to put complexity into software rather than to hardware. And so that's what we did. We sucked out everything from the hardware and put it into software. Everything is possible
for an IT layman like myself. This sounds convincing at first.
Yeah.
Now, having worked in the industry, one of the things that I've learned is that projects typically, like in the old-fashioned companies, and the incumbent companies, projects fail not because of hardware but because of software. Because
really?
they know their stuff. They know how to build a stacker crane, and they know how to build a conveyor. They know how to build a shuttle. At least some of them do. Most of them do. That's whether you buy a shuttle from Knapp or TGW or Dematic or SSI or Swisslog doesn't really matter. There will be some differences in the details, but they're all good. Right? There's no shuttle system that is really bad, and these are all good companies. But the software is such a pain, and a system that is comparatively simple, or that seems comparatively simple, like a shuttle system, you would think the IT part, they have, a company like Knapp or a company like SSI, they have built dozens of shuttle systems. You would think that the IT part must be simple because they have done it before.
It's not simple. Yeah.
It's not simple. It's a major problem, and that is eating their margin. This is delaying the projects. This is just
absolutely. I mean, I totally agree.
But a friend of mine.
It's a question what do you want to solve, right?
Yeah. A friend of mine sold a deep freeze warehouse in the US a couple of years ago, and he told me that story. And I'm not going to say which company that was and who the customer is, but so we should be safe. He sold the system with an estimated IT effort of 3,000 hours. Was sorry, 7,000 hours. 7,000 hours. Now 7,000 hours.
It's pretty significant. It's not small.
To you and to me, this sounds like a big number, but 7,000 hours is like nothing. Okay, so once they've signed the contract with the customer, and of course the contract price was based on the 7,000 hour estimation of IT effort.
Yeah.
Once they signed the contract with the customer, some middle manager or some senior guy came to his office and said, "Hey, we can't deal with these 7,000 hours. Probably we need 13,000." Okay, so we have a cost overrun right there. Now that's 5 years ago, or 4 years ago. Currently, the number of hours they've put into the project, you want to make a guess?
Like 50,000 already.
130,000, he told me. And the project is still not running.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this? I mean, we're talking about, we're calculating in terms of IT hours, but we could be talking about IT lives. I mean, there are several people who would do nothing else from the time they graduate until they retire.
Yeah.
Working on this, and that's crazy.
I can imagine how it where it comes from.
It's
basically where you have hardware, you have WMS, you have so many layers, and for for those layers to work efficiently, you need a very good full stack, people who can traverse and understand the layers top down and bottom up. And you don't have too many of those good people who can actually traverse and understand top down and bottom up. And therefore, in the software world, if you work with people who don't have experience, don't understand, then it's very easy to produce movement, right? Activity, but it's very hard to produce result, actual working system. So that's why you have to be very, very careful. Like it may be 1,300,000 hours, right? It's not the question of quantity, it's a question of quality very often.
Definitely, and it's a question of legacy systems that you have to work with because they're not prepared for the kind of processes that you want to implement in the warehouse. And the software topic has been so painful all the time. I mean, I would say it's the number one pain point and the number one risk factor for several of the automation companies that exist today, because they do not come from the software world, but they need
good software people for sure.
They need it. And it's like German automotive companies. They knew how to build a car until the 1990s. And then the qualities they had were not needed to the same extent. Now they need to be software companies, but they don't have software engineers. They don't have
software is eating the world, and it came to automation world, and there is no way out. Like you one of the two. As a old-fashioned company, or let's say traditional, you're either getting good software people somehow for any money, they have to be on board, or you will be displaced with time by younger companies. That's it.
Well, that requires senior management that actually understands the complexity of software, because the kind of comments I've heard from senior managers was something like, "Oh yeah, the software, that's not the problem. We can deal with that." So because clearly they did not have any idea.
Not enough scars.
They should have had, but apparently they did not. They don't learn.
It will be more and more obvious with time in the coming 2, 3, 4 years that without being software company first, or let's say not even first, without having software as a very significant part of your design, you eventually will lose. And here is how the German, Austrian, and the European companies, there is a ratio. There are very many companies that are family owned.
Yes.
Right. And in the US, much more companies are public.
Yes.
And here is a difference between Europe and the US, in my humble opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. It seems to me that public opinion is less forgiving. So the moment it is obvious that this company is losing eventually, nobody waits for it to lose, right? The stock price tanks the next second.
Yes.
And that's why US companies who are publicly traded just get out of their way to present themselves that they're future-proof, even though half of it is complete bullshit.
Yes.
Like this is just an image they want to present. They're not even close to being so future-proof as they want to be perceived.
Which, by the way, is
whereas
Europeans, I think companies adopted micro-fulfillment centers just to signal to shareholders that they're future-proof. I think that was the dominant.
No comments from me, but let's say you're not totally wrong.